Hello YouTube and welcome to Old Maryland 63 C10. In this episode we are finally going to put some color on our cab. We're going to paint the rockers, we're going to paint the cab corners, and if all that works out we will be pretty much done most of the body work, if not all the body work and paint for this cab. So before we get started working on the truck, let's take a minute to kind of catch up on where we are from the last video, because this is almost like a part two. So let's see where we are, and then we'll get started on the truck video. So the last video, and I'll link that in the description below, we spent the time prepping the cab corners and the rockers for paint. So to get ready for paint, I had already put the kitty hair body filler in all my weld seams. I did that when I was doing the inside of the cab because there were some spots in there that needed some kitty hair, so I figured I might as well just do that all at one time. So the kitty hair was already done. So then the next thing I did was strip everything back to bare metal, or as best I could to get to bare metal, and then scuffed everything in 80 and put a good couple coats of epoxy paint on the rockers and the cab corners. After we did the epoxy, we started doing some body filler on top of that. We had scratched everything up, found our low spots, filled in the best we could, and they turned out pretty well. There are some things that I still need to work on this time. That'll probably take some glazing, but I'm pretty happy with the way it looks right now. After we did the body filler, we did some 2 or 3 coats of high build primer on it, which is where we are right now. So each of the cab corners and the rockers are in high build, so the next thing we need to do is start sanding that down and seeing if there's any more low spots or air pockets in order to fill with glazing. So before we get to the sanding, if you're just finding the channel for the first time, please consider subscribing and liking our videos. If you've been a watcher and a follower, I really appreciate it. And if you've been a subscriber, that's great. Again, I really appreciate the support that I've been getting. Another good reason, because this is finally getting to the point with this build that I think we're almost to the turnaround, so to speak. Because after this part is done, the next thing is getting the cab mounted back on the frame. And this cab hasn't been on the frame for probably at least a year and a half. So this is a big point in the build. So if you subscribe and click the notifications, you can see what's coming up next. And then you can also catch up on all the videos we have before of all the work we've done so far. But again, I'm really getting excited, getting anxious, because I think we're almost getting ready to turn the corner on the build. And you want to be here for all of the next phase, which will hopefully be starting to reassemble this truck to get it closer to being back on the road. So let's get back to the truck and let's get out some 150 sandpaper and start scuffing everything up and see what we got. I got everything in 150 and I can definitely see some low spots. So let's take a look at where we are and then decide what we're going to do next. So starting with the driver's side rocker, these 2 spots were here when I was doing the body filler in the last episode, and I guess I just didn't get quite enough there. And then there's a bunch along here, and I think this is either side of my weld seam. Some very small ones here, here, anywhere there's basically the metal is not, I'm sorry, where the paint is not dull. So we have one back here, and there's a little bit up in here. There's not many pinholes, which is good. I got a little bit along here. Yeah, the light's going to catch it. Okay, so this area on here is the original body lines and the stamping of the rocker panel. So I'm not going to worry about filling all those and getting those cleaned up. Again, I felt the same way about the original spot welds. So I'm going to leave that the way it is. So the good news is the cab corner looks pretty good. I got the same low spot here, and this spot was in my last video too, where one of the patches is, and I was trying to build that up, but obviously I didn't build it up quite enough. So it's very shallow, but we're going to put some glaze in there. But the rest of it pretty much scuffed up without any problems. So that's good, because again, that's what's going to be seen. Now the back side of this corner is a little bit different. Now this area in here is a little bit bigger because I spent time trying to break this edge down to feather that out. But really from this spot here over this whole triangle right here is pretty low. Got some pinholes here, and there are some pinholes on the outside, but again, they're kind of minor. So the glazing putty is not going to fill this whole area. So this one just might have to be the way it is. I'll skim these little pockets here, the little pinholes, but I don't think I'm going to skim this whole area because I don't think the glazing putty is designed to do that. And that's kind of the same story on this side. So this backside here, again, this was another low spot that I tried to fill in with 2 fillings of body filler the last time, but again, obviously I didn't get it probably as thick as it needed to be. I can feel this one, so again, I don't think the glazing putty is meant to bring that whole thing out. And I remembered when I went back and looked at some of my videos, a lot of the spot welds on the back side of the cab, both on this side and on the other side, were not really attached to the floor underneath. And on the other side, I had to put 2 small shims in here to bring the replacement cab corner out to where the original metal and the original flange was down here. On this side, I replaced basically from here all the way down to the cab corner. And I'm sure I pinched these areas together, which drew this side in further than the cab corner wanted to be, which that's right about where this spot is here. So it kind of comes in and then comes out, but I should have had shims behind this and the other patches to make them even up. So again, that was a mistake when I was welding in the patches. So that just might have to stay the way it is too. These are very shallow here. In fact, they're almost getting scuffed, and there's 2 pinholes right here. So we'll definitely glaze those over. Again, the good thing is the outside rocker is in pretty good shape. It's pretty smooth all the way down. I have a couple pinholes here, and I have a little low spot here. It's a little bit harder to see with the light, but so this is very shallow here, so I'll fill that. And this rocker's not too bad either. Again, I broke through very quickly here. I don't know if I'm not putting my coats of the high build down, but I seem to break through pretty easily. But again, everything's getting sealer on it, so I don't think it's any big deal. And then I got a couple low spots here and a couple low spots here. So we're going to mix up some glazing putty, glaze over all this. The glazing putty dries just as fast as the other stuff, so I'll probably get that ready to go right up against the truck and just start filling. And we'll come back and I'll show you what that all looks like. Okay, after a couple attempts and layers of glazing, I think we're ready to go. The glazing dries probably almost as fast as if not faster than the body filler. So you got to get it on quick, and with the amount of space I had to cover, I had to do multiple mixes. After sanding, I went back and mixed some more, and like I said, I did a couple layers, but I think we're pretty much good to go. So smoothed out the driver's side rocker pretty well, filled in all those areas that we needed, got this low spot fixed here on the cab corner and the small one I had up there. I was able to bring this one out a little bit through here that was really low, but again, I wasn't trying to stack the glazing up too much. Same thing with this one over here. These 2 spots leveled out pretty nice as well as this one. This one's still a little low down here along this body line, but again, I can't stack it that thick. And you can see I got a big breakthrough here already. So this is really high. This is a little bit shallow in here, and then it comes back up even right here. So, it's the best I can do on that. And then smoothed out a spot here. And then of course this rocker panel also got smoothed out the areas that needed to be done. So next up is 220. We're going to hit everything with 220. Just like I did with everything else, I'm not going to guide coat until I get to 320 and then 400. So we'll do 220 next. We'll come back and we'll guide coat and do 320. Okay, we've got the truck in 220. So we're going to basically do this back corner here in the next step. So what we're going to do is put some guide coat on it so we can see the scratches. And then I've got 320 on my stick, and we're just going to basically erase all the dark gray or the black. So that'll let us know that we've got the 220 scratches out of it, and it's just in 320. So we're just going to go across it in a check pattern, or I'm sorry, an X pattern. And actually this will also show you where I still have some of Actually, that low came out. That's pretty good then. So this was one of the spots that had a little bit of a low in here. So I got a little bit more to go here. And that's pretty well cleaned up. So now I know, since I don't see any of the gray, I'm in 320. So now we just got to go around both cab corners and the rockers and do the same thing. So I'm going to get my mask on so I don't breathe all this junk in, and we'll do the 320. For the last grit that I'm going to do, because we did everything in 320, I re-guide coated everything again. I'm going to go to 400, but I'm going to do it on a soft interface pad, and I'm not going to put this on my DA. I've seen a lot of people do this phase with the DA. I'm just going to do it by hand, if for nothing else, because I got enough breakthroughs the way it is. I don't want to have the DA take off too much primer. So all I'm going to do is go around in a circular kind of pattern, just to get rid of the cross hatching scratches from the 320, and we're going to just sand this up to 400. And 400 is the last one I'm going to go to. Obviously, with so many breakthroughs, I'm going to seal it anyway. So the sealer will help fill in some scratches, and I think the enamel, since it's a solid color, is a little bit more forgiving than the metallic fawn that I did in the interior. So that I did the 400, and some places I actually did the 600, but mainly through 400. But I'm only going to do 400 here. So we're just going to do this in a circular pattern with this interface pad. Just like that, to get rid of all of the guide coat and the 320 scratches. And when I've done this before, the 400, you'll go through a lot of sandpaper because it's fine, and the filler and I guess some of the guide coat will get stuck in the sandpaper. So be prepared to go through a few 400 discs. So I'm going to get my mask on, finish doing the whole thing, then we'll come back again. Got the truck completely sanded in 400, so we are basically ready for paint. So last night I spent a fair amount of time trying to clean up the area the best I can, swept up a lot of the dust, vacuumed, and then I mopped. Now I know probably a lot of people will say it's a waste of time to mop the floor when there's so much other dust in the building, and I would probably agree with them. But it doesn't hurt, so I did that. Then I did an initial wipe down of the cab, and that was as much to get the areas that the tape is going to stick to, because I wanted to make sure we had a good adhesion with the tape, because again, don't want overspray in the inside and don't want the red paint all over the cab. Then I started working on folding the tape back on itself to again try to create that soft edge to blend in the paint a little bit better. Especially around on the firewall, because again, that is on the factory was just kind of oversprayed in that area. Once we did that, we went ahead and taped everything up, or I should say finished taped everything up, and got the plastic on. So now we're up to one more good wipe down, and then we're going to tack everything off, and then we're going to get started with painting. So next up is going to be sealer. So I'm going to use the same epoxy, the Shopline JP390, but instead of mixing it 211, it's 212 when you use it as a sealer. And then we'll get to some color. It is relatively low humidity this morning, which is lucky in Maryland, and it's in the low 70s. So we are right in the sweet spot as far as the TDS sheets with the flash times based on temperature. So we'll stick pretty close to those flash times. For the sealer, it's 5 to 10 minutes before a recoat, and for the enamel, it's I think 10 to 15, and I'm going to double check that. Once we put the sealer down, it's a 40-minute wait time before top coating. So we're going to go ahead and mix up some paint. I'm a little anxious, I'm a little excited, I'm a little nervous, because once the red paint goes down, that's the final coat. So we're going to get started and we'll see how it turns out. All right, YouTube, well, we got it all done. So I hope you're ready for some red. So let's talk about a couple of things and show you a couple of things that I like about how it went and how it turned out. And then we'll also talk about a few flaws or things that we might want to try to fix. So the first thing that's a good thing is I really like the way the firewall turned out. So again, I was just looking to kind of overspray up to the fawn. I think this turned out pretty good. As you can see, it is definitely red. It looks like a fire truck. But I don't have a hard line here. It's just a soft overspray. And the same thing on this side. Outside of the brace is painted. Again, we got a little bit of overspray on the brace, which is kind of similar to the way it was at the factory. So I think this turned out really well. And while we're talking about the firewall, in a couple of my other videos, I had mentioned that my parts truck is one of the trucks that came from a plant that didn't paint the firewall. This truck is a Norwood truck. My 62 is a St. Louis truck, and they both have the fawn firewall. And shout out to Dustin, who's one of our watchers. He reminded me that the parts truck, because I said the parts truck doesn't have a VIN tag on it, but he reminded me that the factory stamped the partial VIN number on the driver's side frame. And that's right, he was absolutely correct. I went over and it's got a B, so it's a Baltimore truck. So thanks, Dustin, for reminding me that. So we know the Baltimore plant painted their firewalls body color, and at least Norwood and St. Louis painted fawn. So back to the paint. I like the way it came out as far as my body work. Actually looks fairly good. You know, don't see too many of the low spots or really too many of the seams. So I'm kind of happy with how that turned out. Just working our way around the cab. But it is definitely red. So now in the beginning, I had no expectations that this paint was going to match the original paint. However, I didn't think it was going to be quite that much of a contrast. So that's one of the things that I'm not real crazy about, because again, it is a pretty distinct difference between the old body color and the new. I didn't expect the enamel to be this shiny without a clear over top of it. And again, if you look just right at the firewall, this is all newly painted, so that looks great. So I think once this cures and hardens up real well, what I'll probably end up doing is, at least on the back where the bed's going to sit, I'm going to try to maybe scuff down the new paint a little bit, start with like an 800 or something really fine, just to see if I can knock the shine off. If I can knock the shine off, I'm fine. It doesn't matter that the shade of red is much, obviously, darker than the faded 63-year-old paint. So I think that's what we're going to try, is again, starting with maybe 800 or even something finer, and go down to maybe 600. We'll just see what happens. The other thing, I don't know if you can see in the camera, but right along here, not that's a shadow. But you can kind of see where, well, that's a good look at it right there. So right across there is where my primer stopped. So as much as I tried to feather that edge, it's smooth, but it just kind of bumps up a little bit. And I guess that's because the high build and all the other primers are just sitting that much up on the surface of the truck. So that is okay. You know, I should have done a little bit better job of that. The other thing, I had my fans fall over a couple times, and like I said in the beginning, I had mopped, but there's just so much dust in this barn. I got some trash in it from the fans falling over and blowing the air in, and it was windy this morning, so the barn was pushing a lot of air in. So, you know, we've got those issues with it, but again, I am completely happy with it. I thought my body work turned out better than I thought. I'm not a pro at it, but like I said, it's pretty good. And I'm going to be happy with the way that is. And again, I'm really happy with the way the firewall turned out. So that's going to wrap up this video. Again, the cab is 99% done. The only thing I have left to do is to paint the cameo white under the instrument cluster and the glove box. So we're going to be doing that next. The next phase of this build is I got to go through boxes and boxes and boxes of parts to find all the stuff in order to put this cab back on the frame, because that's what's coming next. So I don't know if I'll film all that as far as finding the pieces, because I got a ton of more painting to do as far as the pedals, the pedal assembly, the steering column. I might put that on film for you guys. But otherwise, right now, the big thing is going through boxes, finding parts, and frankly, making a list of the things that I need to still buy. You know, firewall insulation, grommets for the wiring, all those kind of little things. So I have a lot more things to order. But you guys will see all of that if you follow along with Old Maryland 63 C10, and we are getting really close to putting this cab back on the chassis. So thanks for watching, and we hope we'll see you next time when we're actually working on getting this cab back on the frame. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.